The History Show with Maz Duncan.
Welcome back to The History Show on RTE Radio 1. Donald Donnelly, a 76-year-old man from Dundrum. He's mayor of Dundrum and head of his community recycling scheme. Sounds like a normal man, but Mr. Donnelly is no ordinary man by any means, as he's the only male in recorded history to have successfully escaped from Belfast prison Crumlin Road Jail in the 1960s, after he was sentenced to 10 years at just 17 years old for involvement with the IRA. This is Donald's story.
The uprising of 1916 was an assertion in arms of the right of the Irish people to be free. Freedom has been secured now over more than 5/6 of the national territory. We confidently hope that it will not be long until the whole country is united.
December 1921, Ireland saw the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. This signing meant the north of Ireland was now under total British government rule. The north of Ireland now more segregated from the Republic of Ireland, but also segregated on religious beliefs, Protestants and Catholics. Protestants were favoured by the new British government and considered themselves British, whereas Catholics refused the treaty and aimed to unify Ireland. The treaty led to a stronger, youthful and determined Irish force, the IRA. Originally set up in 1917, the treaty enraged Unionists, encouraging many to join the IRA with one single aim: to unify Ireland and abolish British rule. 1956, Donald Donnelly was just 17 when he embarked on a journey of a lifetime. He joined the IRA, which only after a short period of time led to his arrest, a 10-year sentence in Belfast's most guarded prison, Crumlin Road Jail.
As a young man, young fella of 16 or 17, that here we were doing something democratic, and we thought we were making great progress because the people who were being governed had no respect for the government, because the government had no respect for a section of the people, and that was the Catholic, nationalist or Republican people up there. And I said, if a chance comes for me to change this, I'll take that chance. And the IRA initiated its 1956 Operation Harvest, which was a campaign against the British occupation of Northern Ireland and against the injustices. And because I'd been working with the Sinn Féin election campaigns, I knew a lot of the people from Dublin and Cork and various, because they came up for the election campaigns, and it was very simple for me to be invited to join the IRA. And I joined the IRA on December the 12th of 1956. I was out that night with lots of other IRA men throughout the country, and we were destroying the infrastructure. We weren't out to kill, but we destroyed the infrastructure, blowing up courthouses and blowing up bridges and blowing up territorial army barracks belonging to the British Army. And I had been trained in both Lee Enfield rifle and Thompson submachine gun, and also I had been trained as a bomb maker, and I became very adept at that. And so consequently, that's how I joined and became a member of the IRA. In July of 1957, there had been several B special. The hated B specials. Their training places had been blown up in Tyrone. We were attempting to blow up every one of them in Tyrone, and we only got as far as number 4. But we did. We blew these up. Now, I personally wasn't specifically at the blowing up of them, but I did make the bombs. And they arrested me at home at 5 o'clock in the morning. I looked out, I heard a knock on the door, and I looked out the window, and the place was surrounded by B specials and RUC men in the gardens and the back garden and all around the house. And they took me a prisoner, and they charged me with membership of the IRA and also with a conspiracy to cause explosions. And I was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment for membership of the IRA. That was the sole charge.
Donnelly befriended John Kelly, a fellow inmate at the prison. They built a close relationship and began discussing a possible prison escape.
John would have been a very charismatic character. So he was in A wing, which is the high security wing of the prison. There were 4 wings in the prison: A, B, C, and D. And John and myself, I said to John on one occasion, John, when are you going to escape from the prison? And he said to me, they're never going to escape, because the IRA General Staff in Dublin refused to support them. They said that it was impossible to escape. And I said, well, I have a plan. Would you like to be part of it? And he said, I'd love to be part of it. And it was important for me to have somebody from Belfast, because I didn't know Belfast. And when the two of us get out, I'd be dependent on him to bring me through the city's streets to safety and across the border eventually. And also he was, as I mentioned earlier, a marine engineer, so he would know something about how to cut bars and what have you. And the two of us got together, so I told him the plan I had. And the plan I had basically was a if I say so myself, it was a unique one, because it meant that to get to the wall, to get to the main wall, which is about a 30-foot wall, to get to that wall, you came in within sight, within 20 feet of the wall, you were in sight of the gun tower. And if the gun tower fellow saw you, he'd be entitled to shoot you if you're going to go out try to climb the wall. And they were armed for that purpose, with Bren guns and Sten guns. So, how to get to the wall without being shot? And the authorities were always improving the security in the prison, and they raised an inner wall in A Wing to block A Wing off completely, making it more secure, and they ran the wall from the administrative block to the main wall, like a T-junction. And I realised if I could climb up the administrative block windows, which were barred vertical and horizontal, like a veritable ladder, I could get up to the new extension wall, run across the wall. It was at the same height as the outer wall. So what we needed to do was to get a 70-foot rope, anchor it back on the bars of the administrative block, just bring it with us, and okay, we would come into view of both the A-wing gun tower and the D-wing gun tower. But if you could do it quickly, within seconds, by the time they would get their arms ready to shoot, we'd be over the wall and gone. And that was the whole idea, because climbing the administrative block, the D-wing guy couldn't see us because we were in the blind side of the administrative block, and the A-wing gun tower couldn't see us because there was the tailor shop and the laundry building between us and the wall. So that's how that was our plan, and that was it. And the only thing then was how to get in the hacksaw blades and what our timing was. So we worked out the timing, and we arranged a code at the outset, and we only ever talked in code, so if anybody ever heard us, they would know what we were talking about. And we started off how we could develop, what kind of an aperture did we need in the window if we cut the window. And one of the things was the Paris Match magazine, because I was studying at the time, and I used to buy the Paris Match, which was made of very strong paper. And I used to put it under the bed and then near the leg, and I tried to crawl through the opening between that and go out the other side of the bed on the floor. And then I kept bringing it in to see what I could do. At a 21-year-old, we're very athletic and what have you, and that's the kind of way how we practiced that. And then when we got the hacksaw blades, I was an A3, which was the upper tier of the prison of the A-wing, and John was an A2, but he happened to be in the cell directly below me. So we could communicate with a thread, with written notes going up and down. And we then, when the hacksaw blades came in, he started to cut because his was a shorter drop from me coming down, he started to cut the bars, but he had to cut first of all an aluminium or stainless steel style window frame, and that made a terrible noise. But on the actual bars themselves were a dull so the window was far more difficult than the window frame was more difficult than the actual bars. And when he was doing that, I took out my table. Both of us asked for permission to clean our cells, and they love to hear that when you're going to clean your cells. And I got out my table and I had a scrubbing brush, and I scrubbed at my table, and he cut the bars when I was scrubbing, until the warder came up and said to me, "Stop that bloody scrubbing, I'm sick, listen to you, must that." We had to. But anyway, we planned to go on Christmas Eve, and people wouldn't take too kindly to being stopped by police or anything else.
The two men have their date set, St. Stephen's Day in 1959. They are now ready to be the first men to attempt an escape from Crumlin Road Prison.
Well, the day of the escape was St. Stephen's Day, and it was a more relaxed day at work in the prison, because we didn't have to go to work that day. And we were shown a film in the common room which was called Up the Creek, which was beautifully named. And so after that we were brought to the dining room, and the whole thing was for us to get back into the wing of the prison and trying to get out of the prison, because the normal prison warders who were in A-wing would know us but they had replacement people for that particular day, and they didn't know us, and they were very uncooperative. But eventually we got out into the wing on the basis that John wanted to collect a table tennis bat, and then when he went, I wanted to collect a table tennis ball. And we went to his cell, and there was a Mr. Ramph, who's a warder, and whenever you move from one section to another, the warder would shout, "One on, Mr. Ramph," and the other fellow would shout, "One off, Mr. Ramph." That was Mr. Wilson, and that's how it was done. So you couldn't go anywhere without a warder being with you. But it was a kind of a busy evening because in Stephen's Day, and there was a bit of relaxation. But I got to John's cell anyway, and we got in and we finished pulling out the bars because that wasn't complete. And I had my rope that I'd made on the night before. The rope wasn't complete, which has a part of the story later on, but at least it was there, enabled us to flex it around the bars. And I abseiled down the wall, down to the outside, and John came, I held the rope and John came down after me. And the sleet and the wind and the snow that night, it was a terrible, awful cold night, and we had only shirts and trousers and slippers on us. We made our way across, crawled in the muck and the snow and the sleet across the administrative block on our bellies, and then we went up the administrative block windows, which were the horizontal and vertical bars, up to, climbed up first, and I got up, but I had to go over a ledge, which was probably the most difficult thing because you had to kind of move around, and then John climbed up. He stayed below, and then I dropped the rope to him to come up, but did the rope get caught on the cover of the tunnel? There's a tunnel goes from Crumlin Road Jail under the road into the courthouse, so prisoners were never had a chance of escape because you were brought through under the road in a tunnel. An amazing tunnel it is too. And unfortunately when we pulled, both of us pulled at the rope, and the rope broke, and we were left with the weaker part of the rope in our hands. So John climbed up, but I always can remember with the exhilaration looking across Belfast City. I could see the lights. Don't forget that lighting is only 15 years after the end of the Second World War, but I could see the City Hall was lit up and the Belfast City Hospital. And in any event, but I remember the exhilaration and there, the wind and the rain. I said, this is we're at the top of the wall, now we're on our way. The prison warders were right below us, and nobody had been in this wall since it had been built just some weeks earlier, and all the rubble was still on the wall, and I could see them, I could recognise them, Mr. Beattie and Mr. McIver, and they're armed, which I hadn't seen, shouldering one another trying to keep warm, and a few more of them all play acting. But if they looked up, they probably wouldn't have seen us because the lights were shining down on them, and the rain and the drizzle and the sleet. So we crawled across to the end of to the main wall, and John, we had to make up a plan. We had no plan because our 70-foot rope anchored was no good now, the rope had broken. So we were left, so the plan, we had a hastily convened conversation on this. We wouldn't be talking at all, that was part of our plan, no talking, but we had to talk. And we said he'd hold the rope and I'd drop, and then he would drop and I would break his fall. It wasn't a great plan, but that's all we could do. So I put my weight on the rope, and outside the front gate of the prison, to the left of the front gate, the wall was there. And just behind the warders, the prison officers' houses, and I fell practically from the top of the wall, and I hit the cement. And John, with the recoil of the rope, fell inside. But fortunately for him, he hit clay in the garden part of it, although he broke a thumb on it. And then we went. So I was out now, and I waiting for him to come, and I could look up at the top of the wall, imagining I could see him, but of course I couldn't see him at all. But I was very badly injured. I had broken my heel and my hand and crushed all the cartilages, my vertebrae, but I didn't know that at the time. But I knew my foot was very sore, and I thought to myself, here I am now outside the prison and I can't walk. And I was afraid that some of the people from the prison, some of the families with children, because it's only 5:30 in the evening of St. Stephen's Day, the day after Christmas, and children would be playing with their toys, and who knows when they come out. So it was wet and miserable, so that kept them all indoors, I think. And I got up and I found I could stand, and then I found that I could, if I stood on my tiptoes, I had no pain. And I ran down, so we had a plan made, if we got separated, I was to go to his house, which was the most unsafe house to go to.
The prison is now aware of Donna's escape, and an immediate manhunt has begun.
There were 12,000 RUC and police. It was the biggest manhunt for a single person ever in the history of the state. 12,000 of them were out, and they put up a semi-permanent roadblock on Craigavon Bridge in Derry that went on for weeks after I crossed the border, because they still didn't believe I'd crossed the border. because they're used to people saying, he's over the border, which is say, so you stop looking. But they didn't stop looking, they kept searching. And so I headed back into Tyrone, and I got to Dungannon, and there was a guy reading the paper in the Belfast Telegraph, and a big photograph of me in the front of a 3-column spread, and it said, Donnelly's still on the run. And I was hoping he closed the bloody paper, but there was he wanted to read every last line, because all full of little sub stories, and he kept raising it up and raising it. The whole place could see it, and my head's going down while his paper is going up. And then I got to a place called Moneymore, and I had to change bus, and we're leaving Moneymore for Cookstown, because I had to go from Moneymore to Cook. So I went north up around the top of Lough Neagh and back down through Rantlestown and Toonbridge ahead. So I headed down to, because our escape took place on St Stephen's Day 1960. I spent 3.5 years in the prison. There was 4 Christmases and 4 birthdays. So I headed into Tyrone. Any door I would knock, they would give me help and assistance, even though they never heard of me, didn't know me, but they would have heard of me by now. But they never heard of me before. But they would help me even at the risk to their own lives and their own livelihoods. But they didn't mind, they supported me. And I stayed in Dungannon, and I was brought from Dungannon to Donaghmore, and then outside Donaghmore, and then I headed back then to a place called Altamuscan, which was a famous mass rock in Tyrone. And not long after that, I crossed the border.
The History Show.
That was Donal Donnelly's story, his escape from Belfast's most guarded prison, Crumlin Road Jail, at such a young age. He is now free to travel all over Ireland and is able to visit the jail, which he has done. He's met up with John Kelly's family and John Kelly himself, as well as the prison guards that once served those cells.
The History Show.
We will be back next week with some more IRA stories. Keeping in with the 1916 theme, you're listening to The History Show on RTE Radio 1.
The History Show. The History Show with Moz Duncan.
Welcome back to The History Show on RTE Radio 1. Donal Donnelly, a 76-year-old man from Dundrum. He's mayor of Dundrum and head of his community recycling scheme. Sounds like a normal man, but Mr. Donnelly is no ordinary man by any means, as he's the only male in recorded history to have successfully escaped from Belfast prison Crumlin Road Jail in the 1960s, after he was sentenced to 10 years at just 17 years old for involvement with the IRA. This is Donal's story.